Hello everyone, welcome back to Fiber by Nature. Today, I'm coming to you with a very special project that I've been planning for roughly 2 years now. So back in 2023, when my grandfather unfortunately passed away, I wanted to create a project in his honor. So I was looking around thinking, and I thought, tartan, why not? So I did some research, and there's actually no tartans that is directly affiliated with my family surname. So I decided to design my own. I'm a weaver, and why not? So I decided to combine it with my Filipino heritage while I was at it to create something that really represented my own personal heritage and sort of brought the two cultures together with tartan and the colors based off of the Filipino flag. So back in, I want to say August 2023, I spent hours designing what this came to. It is a basic paper drawing of all the colors and the stripe arrangement, and on the back I have all my math as well and the division of the colors. So fast forward to maybe October-ish, after that same year, I wove a sample of the tartan. If you guys have been on my social media, I'm sure you've seen this already, but this is the original sample. This is woven in cotton, and that Maryland the following year, so 2024, I submitted a scarf that was also made out of this tartan. Now fast forward to last summer of 2024, I finally took the chance and bought the wool yarn from Jaeger Spun to finally set this project into motion. And if you guys saw, I was in South Carolina with my dear friend Unique Astrid, and I made the warp at her house while we were doing the snail project, link up here. And this past winter, in January, I decided to finally put this project on the loom. It got woven, sewn, all of the above, and that's exactly what you're going to see in this video, is all the way from winding the warp to me wearing the finished kilt. So I hope you enjoy the video, and thanks for coming along with the ride. This yarn is seriously so soft and gorgeous, and I cannot wait to weave everything. But first we have to make the warp, and before we can make the warp, we have to wind these up into cakes so that we can travel with them. Once at Astrid's house, I was able to do my final calculations so that I could actually put this on the warping mill. So today I am in lovely South Carolina with my friend Astrid, as Unique Astrid on Instagram. You guys probably know her. But she ever so kindly is letting me use her warping mill while I am at her house for the week for another project, like I mentioned before, and I'm going to be making the warp for the tartan on her warping mill just because it's easier and more fun. So let's get to that. I have my pattern sheet with the colors, and let's do this thing, finally. Alright, so I finished half of the warp. I've done 2 repeats of the set, and then what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this off, and then I'm going to do the other half. Alright, it is time, y'all. I'm tired of waiting. This project needs to get done. I really want to do this project, so we are just going to get these warps on the loom. We're going to weave this fabric, and we are going to make a kilt. That is all going to happen this year. It is 2025. I really just want to get this done so we can get an awesome garment made and get to weave some gorgeous tartan fabric. So this is going to get on the loom. Alright, so as you can see, we have two warps, and one of them ends on blue, one of them ends on red, and that is because one warp has 2 full repeats and the other one has 2 repeats, but the blue of this repeat right here is on this warp. So that is not a problem. We will just sort of solve that out. And now, because, you know, I was originally going to do this on a wider loom, we have one. This warp is a little wider than my loom can hold, and that is totally fine. What I'm going to do is put this on the warp, and then whatever section of the warp is wider than my loom, I'll just take that off and preserve that, and then I can use that to weave later on as a separate ribbon or scarf and whatever. So let's get this on the loom. Alright, as you can see, the warp is spread onto the rattle on top of my loom. And here is the extra portion that we already, as I said, decided that we're going to keep this off because this cannot physically fit onto my loom. So we have all of the 3 repeats that will fit on my loom onto here. And don't worry about enough width, because I am, in fact, short enough for this loom to weave enough with fabric for my kilt. In fact, it is just the right amount, so let's hope that this works out. Hello everyone, as you can see, I have completed the first repeat of the 3, and obviously I've removed the 4th repeat, and that is its on warp now. However, you can see this is all of the heddles for 1 repeat, and these are how many heddles I have left on about each shaft, so clearly that is not nearly enough. So I do have, thankfully, extra heddles from my jacket project from 2 years ago, so that is definitely helpful. So once I run out of heddles, I will go ahead and add those. But for now, let's continue threading. Alrighty, everyone. As you can see, the heddles are all on their shafts again. I have put all the heddles on their respective shafts, and we should be able to finish this warp. I might have actually put a little more heddles than I needed to, but we shall see. Let's get back to it. Alright, so here we are. I am slaying the reed now. I finished all of the heddles, and I think we are doing pretty good. I will hopefully get these done tonight. If not, I will get the reed done tomorrow morning, and then we can start weaving. Alright, good morning everyone. As you can see, our warp is on the loom and the bobbins are all wound and we are ready to weave. So let's get right into it. Alright everyone, as you can see, I've been doing some weaving. There have been some technical issues, but we've got that all fixed now, and we are moving quite along, so let's get back to weaving, and I guess I'll see you when we're done with the cloth. Hello everyone, I am halfway through, about 2.5 yards-ish. We have about 1.5 yards left to go, I believe. And look at that roll of fabric on the bottom. As you can see, there are pins here. I did have some struggles with the edges throughout on this side, but we have solved that problem, and I think we're looking pretty good. So let's get back to weaving. Alright everyone, we are finished. I'm gonna go ahead and cut this off of them. As you can see, I've opened a little bit of plain weave just to, you know, lock this in, and just because you'll see later.
So let's cut this off.
Once off the loom, I rinsed my fabric out just to number one, set the fabric, and two, set the dyes. And just as good practice to wash your wools, or any hand wovens really. And then they left hung up to dry, and oh my gosh, this fabric is already looking amazing. Hey everyone, we are at the sewing table. I've marked out the aprons already. That's super boring stuff. But I want to get to the pleats. Essentially, I'm going to pleat the yellow stripe because my idea is that when I walk, the bright red and the blue is going to, shine through as the pleats sort of sway and open up. That is my plan, and therefore we're going to pleat this stripe, and it's sort of just, an element. It'll create a good contrast to the front. And all that good stuff. So I'm going to go figure out the pleat math and the width and whatnot, and let's get to it. And here we are. All of the pleats are pinned up, and it is just the measurements I wanted. The waist should be 16.5, and the hip of the pleats should be, 19 inches. So I'm pretty happy with how that math turned out. As you can see, these bottom parts is a mess. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to baste all of these pleats for my non-sewist. That essentially means a loose running stitch or a loose sewing stitch that just goes to hold things in place, and that serves sort of a structural purpose, as well as when I'm sewing, it sort of keeps all these loose edges together and there's no movement. And with that, I think that obviously I'm going to go ahead and get basting. Alright everyone, so I'm finished with the pleats, as you guys saw, and now we're just going to put in this stabilizer in the back, which, as you guys saw or may have seen in my previous video, is basically a piece of cloth that goes across the back of these inside pleats to just hold them in place. But if you want to see more in detail, you can check out my other video where I made a kilt out of Scotland's oldest tartan, the Glenafter tartan. And there I go more in depth about what everything is and sort of just the process. But for now, we're just going to sort of move along so I can get this kilt done. So we're going to stitch this in and obviously fix these pleats, and then we can start with all the tailor's canvas that goes in the back. Okay, now that I've finished these back parts right here, we get to the very technical parts. So this is going to include a lot of tailor basting or tailor stitching, pad stitching, what have you. There's plenty of names for this. But first we need to deal with the deep pleats or the inverted pleat at the apron edges. So we have this inverted pleat right here, we have the deep pleat right here and the inverted pleat on the inside apron, and we need to pad stitch all of these, essentially just to keep these pleats in place. And when we're finishing and ironing everything, we can sort of mold these parts into structural, more tailor-like garments, because right now they're just kind of laid flat, but when we do the finishing and the ironing, they'll work in a way that this will become sort of curved and will help fit more snugly and more flattering, I guess, on the body. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I will return when we can move on to the tailor's canvas or the horsehair canvas that goes inside to give this structure. Okay, friends, we've got what is starting to look like an actual kilt. It is not just a bunch of pleats in the middle of fabric. We have this structure here, and we have the beautiful herringbone stitches. And now we get to do all of the tailor's canvas. So we're going to set this aside, and here's our canvas. This is horsehair canvas. For those of you who don't know, this is essentially, this used to be made out of like actual horsehair. They still do, but we have synthetics sort of mixed in there. But this is essentially a fabric, less of a fabric, more of, like I said, a canvas that we use in tailored garments for structure. It gives this garment a structure, and essentially it'll fold in one on the cross grain. Yeah, on the cross grain, and on the straight grain, it just bounces back to its natural shape. So this is used to give the garment structure. It keeps a nice flat surface across the back or wherever you're putting it. And we're going to use this to put inside of the kilt so that it keeps the pleats and the front and inside aprons actually nice and flat, so they don't, crinkle or wrinkle as such. So I'm going to cut these pieces out, and I'm going to baste them into the inside of the kilt. I cut out the tailor's canvas, except I just realized that I cut it out on the cross grain and not the straight grain. So it's fine, but wish I had not done that. But now there's no going back. So I'm going to essentially loosely stitch across here, simply to keep these in place. These stitches will come out once we're finished. So they don't have to be really anything tight. They're really just here to make sure this doesn't move around when we're doing the lining and basically the rest of the kilt making process. And then we will repeat the same thing on the other apron, and then we can move on to the canvas that goes on top of the pleats. Alright guys, so I forgot that I didn't have a waistband for this, so I'm going to have to weave one. It's fine, it's only 2 yards really, so I put, if you guys remember, I took off one of the repeats, so I'm going to weave this last repeat, and yes, it is missing the blue because I went to the actual fabric. But I'm going to thread the loom with just this. It shouldn't take that long, and since it's just the waistband, I'm not going to weave the actual repeats. I'm just gonna probably just go with the red and just weave straight red the entire time. So yeah, I'm just gonna weave this. I'm not gonna show you it because you guys already seen a lot of weaving, and I'll see you guys when we can put the waistband on. Alright, so as you can see, I finished the waistband or weaving the waistband. Now I need to actually sew this on here. It's pretty simple. I just need to machine stitch across here, and then this gets folded over and tacked on in the back. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then we can get started with the finishing touches on the side aprons, put in the lining, and then we're pretty much done. Before we actually start on the waistband, however, we need to finish the aprons, I realized. So first off, the inner apron over here simply just needs to get closed off and sewn just together. I can do that either by machine or by hand. I'll probably end up doing it by hand just because it looks nicer. But as for the outer apron, this actually gets a double fringe, essentially a frayed part of fabric. We have the original fabric we used for the kilt, and then we also insert a second piece that goes here. I'll insert some pictures of what a finished kilt fringe looks like right here. But I've saved essentially this sort of end piece from the weaving, and as you can see, I've stitched very quickly and not very neatly to sort of just close it off so it doesn't continue fraying past that point. But I'm essentially just going to fray this until I reach this thread, and then we can sew this here, and it'll sort of just like overlap like that, and you'll see when it's done. And honestly, this is probably my favorite tiny detail of kilts. It's such a minor thing, but honestly, I just think it's a very nice little detail that gets put in. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch this in, and then we can get started with the waistband. All right, everyone. I have the tartan, the kilt with the waistband pinned where I need it to be, with the pins in here that goes the entire length of the kilt. And I also have my walking foot on my machine. This will just make things easier to sew through, like all these layers of fabric. Like this is like just the apron edge, and this is like 3 layers. But once we get to the pleats, like that's going to be really thick. Like that's going to be like this is like a whole 1/4 of an inch at least. So we have a walking foot on here, and we're just gonna start sewing. We'll see how this goes, especially because of the thickness of the fabric. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that, and I will see you when we can fold this over. To my delightful surprise, I was able to get this these waistbands, sewed in quite nicely. And once I finished that, I would turn the top edge of the waistband over to the back side and backstitched this top edge to the canvas inside the lining, making sure that the stitches didn't show through to the front. Once this waistband was finished, I went ahead and cut out the lining, which is essentially just a black cotton broadcloth. I have to say, the lining is probably one of my favorite parts of the kilt. It truly just makes it look so professional and just such a clean, crisp seams as well. So as you can see, I'm using a tiny whip stitch like stitch, I don't actually know what it's called, to tack this to the binding or waistband. Next, once that was finished, the buckle tabs and leather straps got sewn in. Then I took out the basting stitches, ironed it, and the kilt is ready to be worn. This project really means a lot to me, and I could not be more satisfied with how it turned out. So thank you all for tagging along, and I'll catch you in the next one. Keep yarning.